Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah, and I am part of the membership team here at Diabetes Australia. It's great to be here for our Health Hour session number 5 on low GI, and which is glycemic index and diabetes, an exclusive event for our United Plus members, alongside my colleague, accredited practicing dietitian and health coach consultant, Rebecca McPhee. Before we get started, just some housekeeping. Today's webinar will be recorded and will be available on Diabetes Connect. If you do not want your face shown, please turn off your camera. You are also encouraged to ask questions, as it's a very two-way presentation. So please type your questions into the Q&A section on your screen, or you can come off mute and ask your questions. But if you are not asking any questions, please keep yourself on mute. First, I will start with our acknowledgement of country. Diabetes Australia acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners and custodians of this country. We recognise the connection to land, waters, winds, and culture. We pay the utmost respect to them, their cultures, and to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. We recognise that Australia is made up of hundreds of different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups, each with their own histories, culture, language, and belief systems. Their relationship with country remains of utmost importance as it is the foundation for culture, family, and kinships, songlines, and languages. Diabetes Australia is committed to improving health outcomes for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people affected by diabetes and those at risk. With that, I will hand over to Rebecca to start today's webinar.
And thank you to Sarah. And I must admit, I'm always honest in these webinars. The co-presenters are really important. And Sarah is my wing lady today because I thought I'm living in Perth and I thought the presentation was 11 a.m. Perth time, but it's actually 8 a.m. Perth time, 11 a.m. Sydney time. So thank you, wing lady. Lucky I was up early this morning. I was up at 4:30 doing work. And then when I saw the message pop up and thought Sarah was wrong, I realised I was wrong. So the co-presenters are very important. So thank you, Sarah.
Anytime.
And look, thank you all for joining us. And it's an interesting topic, the glycemic index, for me as a dietitian, because I feel that everyone already knows it, to be honest. It's been around for a while. And so today's presentation, for some of you, you might be new to the glycemic index, or for others, you might already know about it, but then you might be thinking, for example, I've got type 1 diabetes. How do I adjust my insulin for this? Or maybe you're looking at losing weight and you want to know how you can still have low GI carbs. Hopefully there'll be something in it for everyone, but as I always say with my presentations, it's a two-way street. So please, in the chat, ask questions. And if I'm not sure, I'll get back to you. So off we roll. I'm just trying to see if I can, because I've got the presentation up. Sarah, if there are any questions that come in, can you let me know? Because I'm just not sure if I can see them. I can only see the names.
Yep, we'll do. I'll shout out if I see anything, but nothing's coming through yet.
Thank you. So with the glycemic index, I'm just going to close up the door. Sophia, please. Because we're 8 a.m, my little one's here, so please excuse the, the calling out. So first of all, we'll go back to what is the glycemic index, and it's not a new term. It's been around for quite a few decades, and it's just quite simple. It sounds difficult, but it's not. It's just a ranking of how quickly or slowly the carbs that you eat digest and form glucose in your blood. And I always love using this graph. It hasn't changed on this slide because it can show you how quickly your blood sugars spike after having a high GI food, and then looking at how nice and gentle the curve is 1 to 2 hours later. It's less of a peak when you're having a low GI food. And there are a lot of benefits to this. And for you, you might already know about this, but maybe there's a friend or family member who need to know about GI. And I'll get to that point because it's not just about helping your blood sugars with diabetes. It's also heart health and weight management, etc. And so we know that we can rank these foods of how they affect our blood sugars. So it's a ranking out of 0 to 100, and the reference food they use is pure glucose 100. But did you know that white bread has also got a reading of 100? So the higher the number, the higher the GI, the higher it spikes your blood sugars. So they use that reference point of glucose or bread. So anything that's high GI is given a number of 70 or more, and anything that's low is given a number of 55 or less. Now, that's turned the concept of diabetes on its head, because years ago, and I'm sure some of you online might relate to this, fruit was considered high GI years ago because of the sweetness. Anything sweet was high, and then you'd go for very plain breads. So I'm going to ask, this is a little test. I've written it down here. So I'm going to do a little test and ask you to tell me what is the highest GI out of a couple of these foods. So pineapple or a scone? Which one has the higher GI? Pineapple? A serve of pineapple or a scone? What do you think?
Pineapple.
Sophie? Who said that? I wish I could see people's faces.
Jocelyn. Is
Here we
it
go.
Jocelyn? Jocelyn said
Oh,
pineapple.
yeah, hi, Jocelyn. Oh, yeah, I've seen you before. Hi, Jocelyn. Yep.
Yeah.
So pineapple, you think, Jocelyn? Anyone
I-
else?
I was thinking pineapple. Yep.
Pineapple or a scone? What's high GI? Any other takers? So the answer is, drum
Deb
roll.
says scone.
Oh.
Yeah, Deb. Deb or Deb? Oh, hey, Deb.
Deb.
Yes,
Yeah.
Deb. Okay, drum roll. The answer is the high GI is scone. You're right, Deb. Now, Jocelyn, that's good news if you do like fruit, because years ago it would have been pineapple, it tastes sweet, can't eat it. So pineapple has a GI of around between 39 and sort of 50. It depends. I'm going to tell you where you can find what is the GI foods. But pineapple is low, and a scone is 92. Could you believe that? So that's just really turned diabetes on its head. And to be honest,
Wow.
I did this little experiment with GPs when I was a diabetes dietitian in England. And it was a whole room of GPs, and we're learning about diabetes, and they all chose pineapple as high. They couldn't believe it because of how we've really looked at diabetes. So with sugars, just because something's sweet doesn't mean it's going to spike your sugars. There are different types of sugars. Some are low GI, like fructose, and some are high GI, like glucose. So, you know, when you have a hypo, you don't go and eat pineapple, do you? It would take a while to get into your system. You go for the jelly beans, for example. So it's good news that, Sophia, Mum is presenting. Yeah, no jelly beans today. So it's good news when you're looking at carbohydrates, and we've got a few ideas coming up. You know, you don't have to always go for the traditional bread, pasta, or potato at a meal. You could use pineapple in a salad. And I do have a really nice salad on our website called a Caribbean rainbow salad. And a Caribbean salad uses fresh pineapple or mango as the carb source. And it's going to be low GI. And there's some food combining in that salad. I'll come back to that. So that's just a little experiment. And you can see that it's the same with crumpets. So crumpets have got a high GI, pikelets, scones, they're all white-based. Yeah, so you could do that little experiment maybe with family members who don't know. Let me just go back to the presentation. Whoopsie. I'm just trying to go back to layout, content only.
We can see the presentation. I can see the presentation.
Okay, I can't.
Oh.
Okay, that's all right. I'll look here. Can you see it, guys?
Yes.
No, you can. All right. I just can't get it back on my screen. Oh, here we go. Yes. So let me just tell you, I'll come back. If you want to know about the glycemic index of different foods, if you Google glycemic index Sydney University, I've actually got a link in the next few slides. You can use their search engine and type in a word, a food, a carbohydrate food. So it has to be a carb. And you can find out the GI of different foods. And sometimes I need to remind myself of what's high, low, or medium GI, because things change. So you might type soba noodles in there, and soba noodles are low GI. Or you might type in apricots. Apricots are low GI. So use that search engine if you're not sure, or if your sugars are going up and you think, well, maybe is it to do with the quality of carb I'm eating, the GI. Has anyone ever used that website? It's fantastic. And the website, they do all the testing there. So it's a very accurate way of looking at carbohydrates. So with carbohydrates, we know it's the most talked about, I believe, the most talked about macronutrient. And everyone's different. Some people might be on only 50 grams of carbs a day. Some people might be on more and not really thinking about the amount, just looking at low GI. So it's not a one size fits all. But this slide shows you the differences between high and low GI foods. And we say swap it, don't stop it. Okay, so everyone's going to be different to what they choose. But on the left-hand side, you can see all the high GI foods. And remember, I said before, years ago, when you looked at a hospital diabetes diet years ago, people were getting flaky cereals like cornflakes with sweetener on top and milk. Can you believe that? And sometimes I've still seen in hospitals a diabetes menu is cornflakes and white bread with diet jam. That's the worst thing you could do. The worst. So what we should be looking at is the whole grains if you're having them in your diet, like the rolled oats. When we're looking at food and eating, we go back to basics, and you'll be saving money because a bag of rolled oats from Aldi, for example, is very, very cheap. There are ways of eating healthy on a budget. Natural muesli or granola, so using plain oats and making it yourself. I've got a lovely high protein granola, so I'm using less oats and more seeds and nuts. And using other grains like barley and rye. You can see with the white bread and crumpets, as I said, going for more, if you don't like grain bread, multigrain bread, sometimes people find it gets caught in their dentures, or maybe you've got irritable bowel or any bowel issues where you can't eat the seeds, you could go for an authentic sourdough. And the good thing about these breads are they're so filling, you're better to have one slice of a good quality sourdough and add some eggs to it, and then you'll get better blood sugar control than 2 slices of just wholemeal bread or white bread. So wholemeal bread is still high GI, would you believe? Because the grains have been pounded. So having wholemeal bread is just as high as the white. So go for the grain or the sourdough, or even... Shh, Sophia, can we please just... over there, please. Thank you, my darling. No, bribery has helped. And also, has anyone seen that? Sophia, please. Low GI or low carb breads and wraps are also a good option. Has anyone ever tried the low carb wraps or bread? Because Bergen, one of the brands, I don't usually recommend brands, but if you're looking at a supermarket brand of bread that is very filling, Bergen is a really good brand, and also they have their own low carb range.
Woolworths also have
anyone,
a low GI range that I buy a lot as well, and they also stock the low GI potatoes, which I had gestational diabetes twice, and yeah, so I still buy my low GI items just to have it, and flavors are quite nice too. Perfect.
Can you still see that screen?
It's gone off the slide.
Can you see that now?
It's not in presenting mode.
Oh, I've just put it as presenting.
That now it is, yeah. Just a delay.
Okay, there we go. So as Sarah said, yep, can you see?
Yeah, it just keeps swapping. No, now it's fine.
Okay. Well, we're on a slide called swapping. Don't stop it. But like Sarah said, Charisma potatoes, they have 25% less carbs. It's not a low GI potato, but it's lower. The same with sweet potato, it's lower. So we'll talk about food combining later on, ways of still having the humble spud, but doing a few things to it to really delay those blood sugars. And you can see rice and noodles and you can see that the low GI alternatives of rice and noodles. You've got the soba noodles, like I said before, and pearl couscous, which is a really, really nice grain that's low GI. You can get that in the supermarket. And then you've got the humble legumes. So tinned legumes are a great source of carbohydrate, plant protein, and low GI. You can see the rest of the options there. The one thing I'll point out as well is those rice crackers. Unless you've got celiac disease, I mean, you might be having rice crackers, but rice crackers are very, very high. And I don't know about you, but when I'm hungry, I can eat quite a lot. So go for more of those whole grain crackers, popping protein on it. So less of the crackers and more protein on top, like a bit of cheese or maybe some tuna with a little bit of tzatziki mixed up on a cracker makes a really good snack. And you can see the types of sugars and syrups. Now, with the, there's a typo there with the honey, the high GI food. There are some honeys that are higher. The lower GI honeys are the floral honeys and the wildflower honeys and pure maple syrup. So you can still use those in baking. You know, about a quarter of a cup per muffin recipe, for example, is absolutely fine. I usually do about 2 tablespoons or a quarter of a cup. And even prunes seem very sweet, which they are. They're also low GI. That's just to let you know, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but low GI doesn't mean low carb. So remember, we're looking at the quality, how fast or slow the carb breaks down, but carb quantity, how much we eat, is the second part of the equation. So we need quality and quantity. So sometimes I've seen clients who have had everything low GI in their diet, but the portion is still too much, which means you get a really big breakdown of blood glucose. And we're going to go through that in a minute. So here are a couple of benefits of how the GI can help us. And Sarah did say that she had gestational diabetes. Yeah, Sophia, can you let me present, please? And then I'll be back to you in a few minutes. Can you please do that for Mama? Yep. Can you please, Sophia? So Sarah had gestational diabetes, and so anyone that you know in the family who might be pregnant, it's one test that we do use during pregnancy. Sophia, please. And you can see that having a low GI diet. Sarah, can I get you to show the presentation, please? I'm really sorry.
Bring it up. I don't know if I've got it still.
So while we're waiting for that to go up, you can see on the slide that I'll show you is there are a lot of benefits to the GI. So while we are watching carbs in our diet, it can be a bit too carb focused. So I am a fan of reduced carb and low GI, but there are so many good properties to the quality carbs. So that example of pineapple and scone, I love a good scone with some clotted cream and jam, right? That's an occasional food, but pineapple has a lot of vitamin C and fiber, and it's really good for the diet. So having more of those plant foods in the diet can help reduce the risk of cancers. It can actually help with heart disease. It can make you feel fuller. So here are the weight loss benefits. Because when you feel fuller for longer, have a think about a good slice of sourdough as opposed to a one slice of white bread, which you can just roll up in a ball and it can be like this, that small. So with diabetes, if you've got improved blood sugars, so if you don't have so much of a spike, you're not using as much insulin, whether you've got type 1 giving insulin yourself or whether you're just diet controlled and making your pancreas produce insulin better. And like I said, with heart health, it helps reduce the risk of atherosclerosis, so the hardening of the arteries where the walls are not narrowing. It can improve blood cholesterol levels. So the grains that I was mentioning before, like barley and oats, are high in that soluble fibre, as well as vegetables and fruit that literally mop up cholesterol like a sponge. And with the gestational diabetes, like I said before, it's really interesting that there's research that says that including low GI foods during pregnancy can help reduce a child's future risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and chronic disease. That's massive. So whenever I see people with gestational diabetes, we don't eat for 2, we eat for 1, but eat well. So there's a whole raft of benefits there. So don't always just think about diabetes, always think of all the other health issues, and also the bowel cancer as well, having high plant foods in the diet. Next slide, Sarah. So as I said, quality counts, and everyone's different with quantity, but you've probably heard of the old fist size of carbs. And if we've got a lot of protein and colour in our diet, a fist size of grains, so that might be your quinoa. Quinoa is technically a seed, but we call it a grain. So quinoa is quite high in protein as for a grain alternative, or rice or pasta or potato. Having that fist size, it's about half a cup cooked. So if you're at that stage where you're not sure why your sugars are going up, or you want to lose a bit of weight, maybe the next thing is to look at portion and portion your carbohydrates. And you can see here I've got the other portion guide, and we'll talk about food pairing coming up, because if we've got the carbs and not enough protein or colour, so salad or veg, that's where we can go wrong as well. It's quite easy to eat more of those carbs. But if we've got a balanced meal, that fist size, a half a cup cooked should be enough. Next slide. So who's heard of different ways of lowering the GI in cooking? And this is an exciting thing. And probably a lot of you think, well, I've been doing this for years, or maybe your grandmother did it. But as I said before, fibre is really important. And adding beans or legumes to sauces, or a casserole or a mince dish, bolognese, also lowers the GI of a meal. And so what I do is, and I've got it as an example coming up, I'll get bolognese and use a bit less meat and add a can of the legumes, like lentils. Brown lentils are great because my toddler doesn't, well, she's a big girl now, she's 4, not so much of a toddler. I add a can of the brown lentils and they just melt through it. You can't even notice it. And that's our carb source for the meal. Lots of grated vegetables. And I don't even serve it with a traditional pasta or rice because I want her to eat the vegetables, and that's plenty for her. As I said before, like the pineapple, choosing a low GI fruit for salad, that could be the carb source. Who's heard of acid, adding acid, so vinegar, lemon or lime juice, or any condiments to meals to lower that GI? Has anyone heard of that before? We've been using vinegar and juice for years. Has anyone sort of noticed that? I'm just looking for the question. Oh, here, I've got the question and answers now. Yes.
Yes, Deb says, I use Calorie King to check carb amount for insulin dosing. Is the GI taken into account when carbs are calculated?
No, darling, and that's because Deb, you've type 1 diabetes, yes? I know Deb. No, unfortunately, and this is where with type 1 diabetes, it gets tricky because we know with the fat and protein can slow down that digestion, as can low GI carbs, so it doesn't take it into account. And I'd love, Deb, for there to be maybe this is an idea we could have, is where you've got the carb, but then you take into account the breakdown. And I'm sure you've got many, many, many examples, Deb, where you've bolused for it and you've got the ratio right, and then the sugars weren't what you wanted them to be. So that's the unfortunate thing. And with type 1 diabetes, it is, as I said, trial and error, looking for patterns. So with vinegars, for example, the research says about 10 grams for a meal to have that blood glucose lowering effect. So it delays the breakdown. Doesn't reduce the carbs in the meal. It just delays how fast or slow, or delays it, so it slows it down. So you're using, so it might be about a tablespoon of, and anyone who's seen my recipes on the website, I'm a big fan of using vinegar and olive oil or lemon or lime juice. And my husband's Brazilian, we use a lot of lime juice. We've got a lime tree growing because lime's far too expensive. So if you ever see any of my recipes with lime, just use lemon juice. If lemons are expensive, use vinegar, and that will break it down slowly, as does olives, the juice in the brine. Yeah. So the same with accounting that for that, Deb. If you've got a salad and you've calculated the carbs and you've added some vinegar, there might be a change. And that's where I guess we get our own little ready reckoner and write down the meals that you had. And I guess it's coming through experience of what changes. Was there a 20 or 30% change in how much insulin you gave yourself because of that meal? And we'll come back to that point. Pasta al dente. Now, white pasta is low GI. So some people, always a question, think that you have to eat.
Sorry, Deb's got her hand up.
Yes.
Deb's got her hand up, so I'm not sure if that answered her question or if she's got another question.
I'll wait and see what she has to say. Let's have a look. Let's go. I'll keep going and I'll keep watching, Deb. So often people think you have to eat wholemeal pasta for it to be low GI. Yes, wholemeal pasta is low GI and better for you, but my husband won't eat it and my toddler won't eat it, my 4-year-old won't eat it. But pasta, if you cook it al dente, that means you can bite it with your teeth, a firm bite. It's also low GI. And the way I use, if you're wanting pasta, for example, is to add a scoop on top, you got your bolognese and maybe a scoop on the side rather than a bed of pasta, because that's where the blood sugars will go up. Or mix a scoop of the pasta in your meal. That's the way to eat it. Next slide. Now this I love, the cooked and cooled starchy foods. Has anyone heard where you cook potatoes? Let's use potatoes for example, because my mum loves potatoes. I grew up on potatoes most days, very Irish, which is great. I don't eat a lot of potato now because I've had too much of it, but I do love the potato salad, and it's so good because if you cook the potato and then cool it, right, it increases the resistant starch by almost double. Now, what is resistant starch? It resists digestion. So it doesn't, cooking and cooling starchy foods doesn't reduce the carbohydrate content. It delays the breakdown. Okay, so it's resisting that breakdown. And so it means you'll get a better blood sugar reading. Now, back to that type 1 diabetes. You might calculate the carbs for a potato salad using the cooled potato, and you will get a different, perhaps, blood sugar reading compared to if you just had some mashed potato, because of that change, that increase in resistant starch. Now, if you add the lemon juice or vinegar, you're adding more acid and fat, olive oil, it's going to further reduce the GI. So that potato salad is such a humble recipe, but you could have a spoon or two of that, like a small fist size, and it's not going to affect your blood sugars if you're using the charisma potato as well. So there are ways of living and enjoying food and being able to manipulate the cooking method, and you'll get better blood sugar readings. I'm just having a look if
Deb
Deb's got
also
a
said,
question.
yeah, she said she has a glass of soda water with lemon juice with her meal and find that helps as well.
Fantastic. A great example. So what Deb said, they've done experiments there where they've put apple cider vinegar or any type of vinegar or lemon juice, having the water, and that really does affect the blood sugars in a positive way. So whether you're not doing it in a meal, you can drink it absolutely, or doing some sort of physical activity. So it sounds like with Deb, it's great that you're contributing to the discussion, because it's about experimentation. It's about experimentation. And if you're not sure, that's when you get onto our forum. These are just a quick 1 hour update, but I must mention, get on that forum, ask questions, and then you'll have experienced people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes that often get in there before I do, because I work part-time, and get in and answer some questions, and I'm there as a guide as well. But don't ever think of blood sugar readings as bad. It's trial and error. It really is trial and error. But if you think of this, probably the most important part of this talk today is the different factors that affect the carbohydrate breakdown. Okay, and that's where you can answer a lot of questions. If you've got type 2 diabetes and you're not on really any medication or only a bit of medication, then, adding acid and protein and fat, absolutely fine. But with type 1, it's a different kettle of fish, because it can delay, which is good if you want to lose weight, but then the insulin's not going to cover it. So that's where it becomes a bit more complex for type 1, and a little bit more efforts involved, as Deb's doing with the experimentation. But protein absolutely, again, slows that digestion and absorption. So if you're adding chicken, rice, chicken, fish, tofu to a starchy dish, it's going to go down better. Or rather than having toast with Vegemite, 2 slices of toast with Vegemite, maybe cut down to 1 slice, keep the Vegemite on there, and add 2 eggs. I love that salty taste with the eggs. That protein's going to slow it down even more. And actually, in relation to that, this is probably back to what Deb was saying, that I was just reading, I'll message you separately, Deb, but I was reading that high protein meals without carbs, if it's above about 50 grams, you can account it as 10 grams of carbs for every 50 grams of protein. So I found that quite interesting when you're actually bolusing for insulin. Yeah, it's. Oh, thank you for the postcard. Can you go and write me another postcard? Lovely. And again, as I said before, with adding fat, like protein, it slows down the digestion and absorption. So go on with the days where it's a low-fat diet, we want to add olive oil. So cooking those poached eggs with olive oil, adding avocado to meals, seeds and nut butter. When I say nut butter, I mean 100% peanut butter. Get it when it's on special. They're quite expensive for a jar, but I always buy it when it's on special. So almond or peanut butter, putting a good spread of that on some Vita-Weats, you'll feel very satisfied from 2 small Vita-Weats with lots of that peanut butter. or avocado with tomato, rather than some rice, lots of rice crackers with low-fat cheese. Forget the low fat, use good fats. Again, there will be experimentation when you have type 1 diabetes. Any questions about that? But it's exciting to see that you can manipulate your diet and eat all those traditional foods. Probably my most common discussion with clients when they've been diagnosed is they'll say, oh, I'm from an Indian background, or I'm from Asian background, or I'm from South American background, or Italian. I'm going to have to give up my cultural foods. Absolutely no way, because you can see with all these points I've talked about, there are elements in every cultural food that apply. So you just have to, particularly let's think about Indian food. Basmati rice is low GI. Maybe cut down the quantity, or not double carb and have chapati in the rice, maybe one or the other, or half of each. So there's ways of still including all those cultural foods in your diet. And then if you're looking at weight loss or trying to tighten those blood sugars, that's when you might tighten the carb portions a bit more. Remember, get online, ask me as a dietitian, send me a diary. You might personally message me in the forum. You can do a personal message, send me the diary and say what's going wrong, particularly with type 1 diabetes. I'm getting a spike here, delayed spike, or maybe you're not losing that weight. Are my portions enough? Next slide, Sarah. There must be something interesting on ABC Kids. She hasn't come back. Hopefully you all have got children or grandchildren understand. So let's put it all together. Here's a couple of examples, and this is a low carb day, right? And this may not apply to you. You may not need to lose weight or manage blood sugars, but this is the typical question I get is cutting down the carbs and low GI. So a slice of sourdough, one quality slice of sourdough, a quarter of avocado smashed on top, so a quarter per person, 2 eggs your way, and then that lovely squeeze of lemon. Okay, that acid's going to slow it. Or like Deb said, you have the soda water with lemon juice with your meal, or just before your meal, and that can slow it down. That sourdough, it's around 15 grams. That's a 15-gram of carbohydrate meal. Lunch. I put this in here because I said before you could use fruit, seasonal fruit, as your carbohydrate source. So a chicken walled-off salad, I've got that on the website. Some cooked chicken, lettuce, celery chopped up. The small apple is your carb source. Chop it up, keep the skin on, mix it up. Walnuts, a quarter of a cup, toasted, mix it up. And then the dressing is that Greek yogurt. So that's a high protein, low GI source with your lemon juice. And that dressing with the chicken salad is absolutely delicious. So you've got fat, you've got protein, and you've got a small amount of carb. Again, that's probably going to be around 20 grams of carb. Okay, because you've got the apple plus a bit of the celery and the lettuce. A snack in the afternoon. I didn't put a morning snack because I find that if you have, unless there's a big gap between breakfast and lunch, if you've got eggs and sourdough, you might find that you're quite full and don't need a snack. But the afternoon, as I said before, those grain crackers with some protein on top, or Greek yogurt with berries, with some nuts, or a handful of nuts. We know that a small handful of nuts every day can really improve heart health, and maybe have a serve of fruit with it. The carb is the fruit, so it might be two plums. So go seasonal, and that's where it's going to be cheaper. But that little pick-me-up snack for the afternoon, and that's around 15 grams, will carry you right through to the evening. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, postcard, lovely. The hidden veggie bolognese I mentioned before, this is just presenting carbs in a different way. So potato, rice or pasta, nothing wrong with that. But this is trying to get us to eat different types of carbs. So I've said the fruit for the lunch, and for the dinner, a can of brown lentils, which is $1.10, with the lean mince. That could be lean beef mince, pork mince, chicken or turkey mince, all the grated veggies. I do herbs in there. I do a splodge of red wine and 2 cans of tinned tomatoes, and it's absolutely delicious. And a bowl of that gives you about 16 grams of carbs, and it's so big in the bowl or the plate, you don't need any of those traditional carbs with it. So not saying that traditional carbs are bad, it's just trying to get us to eat a variety of plant foods to look at that prevention of cancer, improve heart health. And it's so cheap. This hidden veggie bolognese, my 4-year-old, she calls it Pasta Man, because there is a lovely Italian restaurant near us and he makes the best pasta, but she thinks it's Pasta Man. tell a white lie and say, oh, I've just bought pasta man again. And she absolutely loves it. It's a very, very cheap meal and a 4-year-old's satisfied. So that's our go-to meal at least once a week. Any questions or any tips that you guys have? Like I said before, hopefully this might be just reflecting what you already know, or maybe there's some tips that you're going to take away. But that putting it all together is an example of a lower carb, low GI diet eating plan. No, not yet, darling. Now, for some people, that might not be enough carb, and for some, it might be too much, but it's actually quite a, if I just tally it up, so let's say 20, 40, 55, about 70 grams a day. That's very low. So you could add more to that. I would add another snack or maybe an evening snack, whatever the case may be. But it just shows you that you can eat lower carb, but be very, very satisfied. Questions or comments about that? Oopsie. Any tips that people have? Any favourite low GI meals you eat, or any products that you really recommend?
Deb has said she adds some chili to her bolognese and a dollop of sour cream on top. Sounds delicious.
Oh, delicious. Two good reasons why that's great. Chili really helps. You know, when you go to an Indian restaurant or you do have chili foods, you don't eat as much. It helps to reduce the portion. And that dollop of sour cream, again, is that fat that you're putting on there that's going to slow it down. It really is going to slow it down.
Cottage cheese? What's cottage cheese?
Yeah, oh, good point. There is a recipe.
I've been having some shakes with it and I was wondering, yeah.
Oh, well, my mum says I've got a recipe and answer for everything. So try me. I do have, you could use the sour cream like Deb said, or I do have a high protein sour cream recipe, which is basically 500 grams of cottage cheese, put in the bar mix like container, a tablespoon or 2 of lemon juice, whiz it up, and that makes thick, high protein sour cream, but it's actually cottage cheese. So you could, because the lumpy texture would put off my family. Me, not really. I've grown up with cottage cheese. My mum was a lover of it. But if you blend it up with lemon juice, you can't tell the difference. And it's really high protein. It's got that tart taste and very, very cheap. So you could use that, or if you're looking at reducing saturated fat, or you could use what Deb said. You could put avocado and sour cream on top. My last meal plan that I did was the Latino one, and so it does feature a lot of these what Deb said, chili, and that smashed avocado on top with the sour cream. But yeah, high protein cottage cheese, sour cream. I use that for my potato salad. I've mentioned in previous webinars that I cook the charisma potatoes and cool them, chop them up, put that high protein sour cream in there, some dill, mix it all up. It's just absolutely beautiful, and put that on a platter on a bed of rocket. Sometimes you could put some smoked salmon or trout slices on top, a few capers if you like fishy taste. Delicious. But yeah, cottage cheese. Big fan. Not a big fan. Yeah, my family hate cottage cheese.
Linda just added she loves mangoes, but they make her sugar spike. Are there any suggestions other than putting some in salads?
Yeah, great point, Linda. With mango, there's two things, because they are low GI, but it's how much we eat. So are we eating it with another carbohydrate in the meal? And that could be double carbing and making them go up. So for example, I've had clients have chopped mango with yogurt and it goes up. So it might be just eating half the serve of mango with yogurt. But you can have mango definitely with yogurt as a dessert in salads. You could also do a chopped up mango with cucumber, mix it together maybe with some spring onion, and you can have that to cool down a chili. So if you've got an Indian meal, you can add a scoop of that, and that can really cool down a meal. So it could be sweet or savoury. You could put a little bit of that in a smoothie. So a cup of milk of your choice with about half a cup of chopped mango. So not the full mango. Blitz it up with maybe a tablespoon of almonds and vanilla essence, and that can also be another way of enjoying mangoes. Yeah, so mangoes won't spike them as such. It's how much we eat of it, and if we're eating with another carb where we're double carbing, if that makes sense.
Deb suggested making a mango chutney as well, which quite delicious.
Perfect. Exactly. And mango chutney, you're on the board there. Mango chutney again, we'll be using acid. So you'll be using vinegar in the cooking method of the chutney, so that that vinegar condiments help to naturally lower the blood glucose level of the meal. So yeah, mango chutney, like I said, if you're doing freshly chopped mango, a bit like you have a cucumber raita, you could have like a mango raita or the mango chutney with an Indian meal. It really cools it down when you're having something spicy, like you do with the tzatziki and things like that.
How about
Definitely.
in a breakfast shake? Like, could you have that with the cottage cheese and other things in there?
Yeah, so like I said before, the breakfast shake, I do a cup of milk with about half a cup of chopped mango. Then put some fat in there, some seeds, maybe chia or almonds or other type of seeds, and blitz it up. I like vanilla essence. It gives it a really nice taste. And you could have that as a drink. The Indian people drink, the Indian population drink mango lassi. It's a great probiotic. So you could have just all Greek yogurt blended up with mango, blitz it up, and you've got that real tart and sweet taste together. Really, really nice for breakfast. Yeah, mangoes, isn't it nice in the supermarket? I think the prices are changing, but I thought of it about 4 weeks ago. You go in the supermarket and berries are cheap, mangoes are like $2.50, $3, grapes are cheap. It's just so nice. And that's where I've been over summer. A lot of my carb for the day will be like fruit in a salad, for example, just so fresh and yummy. Then as we get into winter, well, first of all, getting to autumn, pears are coming out, put pear in a salad. Or sometimes I'll have a snack, a wedge of cheese with sliced pear. Delicious. Very, very nice. Again, you're doing that food pairing. Any other comments or questions? And if you forget something from today's webinar, you could always, like I said, email me in the forum, message me, put it up to the group, especially if you're going out there and experimenting. So like Linda, you said the mangoes are spiking your sugars. That's a really good point. Really investigating what was it about that meal? Was it the quantity? Should I try in something else? Because you absolutely love mangoes. You can get frozen mango too, or if mangoes are still cheap, chop them up and freeze them and just put a handful of that in a smoothie. So that frozen fruit like banana or mango makes the smoothie really thick and creamy. It's absolutely delicious. Any other questions? Just having a look, I've answered all the questions.
Yes, it doesn't look like there's anything else coming through. I might just stop sharing.
That's
Is
better.
there?
I'm just going to have a look to see if I've got anything else I wanted to add. Like I said, these
Linda just
chunks
said
are
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Really?
It's an interesting, like I said, it's an interesting topic, a lot that we know of, but you know, like Linda was asking, the sugars are going up, although I'm having mango, which is low GI, then going away and changing it and see what happens. But before you blame the food, always think about other reasons that may be spiking those blood sugars. Yep. Is it diet? Is it stress? Is it sleep? Is my meter faulty? Is it the other medications I'm on? Or maybe my medication or insulin needs tweaking. But diet is a very easy factor to consider first. And then if you think that the diet's fine, then look at other reasons why the sugars could be out of whack. And, you know, with type 1 diabetes, like I said, you might have to spread out that insulin over time if you're finding that the sugars are not what you want. So it can extend a bolus, so delivering your portion of insulin more gradually. And that might go well with those low GI foods. But as I said, it's experimentation.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and all of you for taking the time to attend today's event and asking your questions. So the United Health Hour sessions are part of your member benefits, so we'd love to always have your feedback. I'm just going to pop a link in the chat. So if you have some time, if you could please click on the link and put in your feedback, we'd love that. So I'll just pop it in.
One thing I was going to ask as well, this is one thing that we're going to do down the track. Any She got me thinking about that mango chutney dip. Any recipes that you'd like me to modify, and you think, oh, there's this great recipe and I want it to be more low GI, or I want to modify the carbs, send it to me and I will make it over. So
Mhm.
send me any of your favorite recipes. I'd love to have a look at them and work with them, and that's something we can share together.
Wonderful. I've just
Thank
shared
you,
that link. So if
everyone.
you have some time, that'll be great to just get some feedback. Any topics that you'd like to know more of, because we're always evolving and changing it up a bit. Thank you again. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Wing Lady.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.